Well, how's it going, man? Doing good?
Hey man, living the dream, just one day
Good.
at a time. No, actually,
Good. Well,
I know we're going to talk a little bit about this, but we've been starting a new venture, and it's been pretty exciting. All the
well,
ups and downs you'd imagine.
I'll tell you, man, I would love to start there. If you wanted to give just maybe a little quick intro background,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that'd be great. And then I'd love to dig into it. We're excited.
All right, perfect. Well, good to meet you guys. First of all, thanks for having me on this afternoon. So yeah, Wendell Bontrager. I am a 30-year banker. Most of those years were spent in Indiana, Northeast Indiana, the Fort Wayne area. Started with a large regional bank, National Bank of Detroit, and that's where I grew up in the commercial lending ranks, and then made the move to Fort Wayne. And then soon after our move, helped launch a bank, my first de novo, Tower Bank and Trust, back in '99, and a little bit different de novos now versus back then. But anyway, spent 15 years at Tower, and did everything you can imagine. Had the opportunity to kind of grow up in banking in those 15 years, and I could write a book on everything you should and should not do in banking in that little venture. So we ended up selling the bank to Old National Bank back in 2014, and spent a few years with Old National, and then after that had the opportunity to move to Kansas to become president and lead a bank out there for a couple of years, and then soon after that we had a couple of grandkids born. And keeping Nan away from grandbabies is not a good idea. So moved to Middle Tennessee, where we're based right now. We live a little bit north of Franklin, Tennessee, which is just south of Nashville. And exited the industry briefly. Joined a company in the credit card processing space, still financial services. And I was kind of tired of the industry at that point in time. So I've seen enough of community banking. And then a couple of years after that, investment banker calls me and says, "Hey, by the way, you want to get back in the game?" I said, "If you have something that's technology based, that's a different model, they give something new excitement," I said, "Let's talk." And so sure enough, that's what led us to today's discussion. I joined the Sonata team back in July of last year, and we've been getting the bank rolling ever since.
What a cool place to kick off, just by the way. Like, I think it's something me and Dad talk about a lot. We feel that this is the coolest, funnest, most exciting time ever in banking. But you talk to a lot of others, I mean, both on the technology side and community bankers that are just drained, right? And I think it's to your point, right? Those that have found kind of the new edge, and typically a technology edge, are just ecstatic, having a really good time. And others, it's a pretty clear distinction point between the two.
I tell you what, the best job to have in the industry right now is Chief Innovation Officer or Chief Technology Officer, right? That's like a big playground, because you have thousands of fintechs you're looking at, you're experiencing all these new solutions that are out there for banks, and you're bringing those and introducing those to a kind of a mature, tired industry. So it has been a lot of fun, and I couldn't agree more, Tanner. This is the most exciting time to be in banking, because when I compare and contrast the startup in '99 in Fort Wayne was a traditional community bank. Our community was defined by the geography in Northeast Indiana, right? We are starting a new community bank, and while we're based in Middle Tennessee, I can get into more of our model, but the long and short is our community is a franchise restaurant industry on a nationwide basis, right? That's our community. And because of the platforms we can build, we can be based right here and service anybody in any part of the country. So it is exciting.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it, guys. I'll tell you what, the last few weeks of watching, the systemic meltdown of crypto and everything there. And I tell our team all the time, I mean, it's not like we haven't done this before. We called it the crash of '29, followed by the '33 Banking Act, right? And what we built were the safeguards in the system. And especially coming off of our roundup and all the excitement that was there, man, I mean, the one thing that continues to ring true, and it goes back to trading bones for spears, banking. It's banking, and we have the best system in the world. And all this, like Tanner and you guys are talking about, all of a sudden this got real cool, man. I mean, real cool, to the point that we work with a lot of universities and their banking programs and help them with things. And the number one request that we get, there's always strategy and things like that, but it's fintech. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. And then the talent pool with a lot of the economic situation right now for the bankers is increased tremendously. And when we talk about like succession planning in a bank, a lot of community banks are family owned. And it's not cool, man. It's like, no, I think I'm going to do race cars or something else. I don't want to do banking. And all of a sudden, this got really, really interesting and very, very fast. And I think the bankers that are still, we've been doing this 115 years. I don't need any help from anybody. Think of it, if you did a bank without loans, it's going to be damn hard to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we all decide to merge with each other to get scale, do you think you're going to compete with the Empire State Building if you're about the size of an ant? That's about what we're really doing, is merging together to finally get big enough to be an ant. This isn't not a solution. But at the same time, when we start looking at breaking those geographic barriers that all of our regulations, everything was built on, and then look at what the smart fintech people are doing. They're trying to buy a bank charter. So we're actually holding in our hand the most valuable thing in America at the most critical moment in time in banking's history, that we've democratized banking through the technology. Man, if you're not in this game, get in it. It's pretty cool.
I say amen to that, Dave. Couldn't agree more. That's a great, man, you bottle that up, and you need to talk to every banker. And I know that's your guys' goal to do that, by the way, is to preach it. And I'm certainly sitting in the pews listening to that.
I'll tell you a couple of things we've done. Obviously we started with the roundup, but then we launched Bankers Helping Bankers. That has really done a great job of bankers just pick up the phone, contact us, we'll help you. I don't even care what the problem is. I've had people go, well, I'm in McAllen, Texas, and you got to see my geography. It's pretty rough. And it's like, well, let's become a CDFI bank. You don't have to become a Bass bank. There's so many ways to make money, and bankers are kind of shielded from some of that sometimes. And there's an entire industry out there that has tried to complicate simple things because they make money off of you. The other thing that I think is really neat is the Bankers Helping Bankers Fund. This is something different. It's not your typical, let's raise $500 million and see what we can figure out what to do with it. This is actual community bankers investing in a fund for products for community bankers, uniquely different. And this is where I really think it gets cool, right?
Yep.
So if you think about that succession planning we were talking about, get the family involved here. This is an excellent way to do it because you're investing in your own bank's future.
Well, you guys didn't ask me to say this coming on the podcast today, but one thing I will tell you that I appreciate about what y'all are doing for Bankers Helping Bankers, the FedViz model, all of it is, a lot of these bankers don't know what are the best next steps. And you guys provide an unbiased opportunity to say, hey, come talk to us. We'll give you those next best steps. I love on your website, you talk about collaboration. I've talked to many bankers. I'd love to talk to many more about, hey, look, here's how you break through the barrier. Because I represent that guy that's been in the industry 30 years, but I love the entrepreneurial side of banking, right? So it's how do you break that mold? And a lot of bankers just don't know how to break that mold. So if they talk to you guys, they talk to other bankers that are doing it, it's a definite way they can at least take a step forward. Because I think that's what's holding a lot of banks back right now, is just taking that first step.
Let me ask you a weird one. Okay. And I think this ties in what we've been talking about. So I've always thought that community banking kind of looks like a franchise model. I mean, there's definitely some similarities, right? It's like, let's just say that government as a whole is sort of the papa bear in the franchise model. And they're sitting there like the baby bird saying, hey, what's next? Or what can we do? Right. It's sort of odd to me, as opposed to what we would see in a much more entrepreneurship driven model, which is how I think of community banks. And I bet as just a difference point, that's how you probably see yourself. I mean, I can tell you, I see you as an entrepreneur, no question, right? But do you see that kind of franchise methodology that's on community banking? And is that too much or too little? Does that make sense?
I think let me answer this way. I want to see if I'm understanding your question right, because I think you are definitely onto something. The part that was most difficult for me with community banking is around this element of customer experience.
Right.
And banks tend to think, okay, it only happens through people, right? So you got to go to your local branch, you got to see Sally the teller, or Frank your local teller, and you see them, and they're going to be your best asset. And by the way, people are the best asset, period. However, today's world, whether you're rural, urban, you name it, we as consumers, we want to go digital. We want to make it easy. Well, banks, what they don't do well is when they've got 40, 50, 60 branches out through the network, they're not ensuring that Tanner, if you go to branch A, in Austin or branch B in Wichita, that you're going to get the same level of service. You may or may not.
Right.
And that's where I think what we're really focused on is making sure that we are delivering outstanding customer experience. So we're competing with other banks, but also these neo banks. Look at, Venmo. You can get your debit card with Venmo. I want to make my debit card more competitive or as easy to get as Venmo's, right? So I don't know if I've answered your question very well or not, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of truth in what you're saying about the analogy between franchises and banking.
It's wild, man. No, I've noticed it for a long time, and it's odd that whether it's the branch model, whether it's community banking as a whole, and you look at the various regulators, there's definitely like a hierarchy, right? And it's like we're all paralyzed by that hierarchy. And to your point, once you track that hierarchy far enough down, it's different by the time you get to the bottom, right? Things aren't uniform, and they're definitely not innovative or moving faster. And so it's just interesting when you mentioned the restaurant theme. You got my wheels spinning a little bit, thinking about, man, I have thought about that. There's just something about the word franchise and community banking that it feels synonymous to me, and it shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
This is part I get in trouble every time when we get to this moment in the conversation, and it's like, Dad, stop. Don't say anything else. Stop. But I gotta go. I'm gonna go ahead and break the rules again.
Cool.
This is what I do. So
it really is.
You guys have got a model at your bank that serves franchise employees all over the world, all over the U.S. I mean, it's a great idea. And like your point about franchise banking, I've got a banker right now I'm helping that has a really cool product, and they are now franchising it out. We've got 3 other states that the bankers in that state have chosen to, hey, I like the product too. Can I offer it in my state? And so now we're working on that franchise model. So this is to kind of put a bow on this and get the bigger picture out there for the bankers when we're screaming at the board, take the first step. Man, yeah, there was a time where maybe we didn't make auto loans, but then we decided, sure, we can do that. Or maybe there was a time where it was just mortgages, but not commercial. Then we decided, okay, we can do that. How many of you raise your hands if you've changed your mind and gone back the other way? Nope, nobody. I don't know a single person that's done the vast banking space or decided to move into embedded finance or a franchise model of a bank or any level of this new opportunity zone that has said, nah, I don't want anything to do with that. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it. Everybody's going, man, we're making more money than Charlie Brown. That's the best thing we've ever done.
That's right.
And it's an opportunity out there. And here's the point I want to make to everybody. Whether it's a franchise model of your bank, and accessing that out, you're democratizing the greatest expense of your bank. So people say we have this regulatory burden. Then take people that can't get a bank charter and let them be your primary customers. And if you do it in a smart way, we can show you how to do it very cheap, very inexpensive, and very fast.
That's right.
And when you launch that model, you're making money in ways off of your regulatory burden that you're already going through. You're just sharing that with other people that don't have a charter and giving them banking functions. This is a new way to make money. It's a way that, to Tanner's point, he says this all the time. Look at Walmart. You tell me it ain't coming to your town. It's already here, buddy. Yeah. It's happening. And
that's
for
right.
you guys to be the tip of the spear, Wendell, this is so really cool to have bankers like you on here to talk to other bankers. And how did you guys cross that first step? How'd you get your board to go, okay, this sounds a little crazy, but and you guys obviously have done this before.
Yeah, you got it. Well, the idea really started for Sonata from our founding investor. As Farzine, he owns 100 Taco Bells in multiple states. And you know what he said is, he goes, you know what? The biggest issue I face at Taco Bell is turnover. If y'all could help me address turnover in my company, that'd be great. Which for us means we're going to create an app, a super app, we're going to call it. And the super app is going to be carried out with employees that combines both traditional banking services. So think of not only your traditional P2P payments and other things, but also budgeting tools, financial stewardship, savings, but also non-banking services. So think of access to healthcare. A lot of these are part-time employees. They have multiple places that they work. Well, for a number of dollars a month, we can provide access to healthcare for these employees that many times the employer will pay, right? They don't have to go to the doc. They can get on the phone and talk to them. And so ideas like that. There's a number of other ideas that we're developing. We're in the beta stage right now. We're getting ready for a first quarter launch. And so that's going to be the secret sauce for us, is to go to the employees and really promote the employees. And Dave, you guys, and both of you guys have touched on this, on the franchising and how you take this out, is innovation. I just heard this the other day. Innovation is taking two things that exist, putting them together in a new way. We're not hiring programmers and developers and bringing them in to write this new deal. We're using Jack Henry's Banno app as our platform. That's going to be the bones of our app. They're one of the best in the marketplace. We did our research on the front end, and the other services we're snapping into Banno, because they're the best in the API integration. There's nothing new here. So, but the innovation doesn't always have to come in us developing the next secret sauce or next new product. So that's kind of what we're really focused on right now, is doing that.
You bet.
I think it's great. Tanner talks about, we kind of, I don't know if this is like a crummy thing to say or a really cool thing to say, but if you learn from the fintechs, I mean, we all have seen, hey, look at Uber. We figured out that people actually want to get paid the day they work. Maybe he puts in 6 hours and he'd like to spend that money tonight on dinner. You never know when it's a wife's birthday or something that's important and you need to do that. And people want that flexibility today. And so whether it's earned wage or whether it's, this feature or that feature, these feature functions of these, we'll call them critters, right?
Yeah.
All of these neat things are becoming so democratized. Somebody can come in and say, I've got an idea. So we met with like the Obsidian guys. They come from the inner city Detroit. They're just, Harvard awesome people. And they want to go back to that community and coach their community up on how to, access the capital, FICO scores, all these little things and all these little credit builders and neat things that they're going to do to take these things. They didn't build that stuff. Those things are already there,
right,
in the marketplace. And so plugging them into places, that's where we see some of the next opportunities that we're working on with IBAT and others to create like you call yours a super app. Well, we have like a super accelerator where it's data, it's distribution models, it's smart things that can be done here and helping these people come together. So one of the neat things, to wrap a bow on that Obsidian story, they connected with one of the banks off of our Bass Association board. And that banker understood, heard about them. And he's like, you were talking about these guys, and I took a look at them. And so now not only are they going to be their sponsor bank, they're investing money in them, and they're plugging these little feature sets in that they need to perform those functions in their app that they felt them, they saw them, but they just didn't know how to put it together. Well, and so there's help out there. It's not like a bank is isolated on its own and has to take some risky step over the iceberg. No, this is easy stuff.
Can I mention too, like maybe the most important thing of the conversation, maybe the most important thing of the whole decade, the Taco Bell thing. Like I freaking love Taco Bell. Like, go Taco Bell. I am a huge fan. You talk about something that's been forgotten. That is the best. Taco Bell. Okay, sorry, I had to get that out.
Who doesn't love a good Taco Bell meal? You know what I mean?
There are little communities out there with little bitty banks in nowhere, Ohio, and people go to that bank every day, and they have no idea that bank powers 110 million cards. That how unbelievably rich this bank is. They still serve their community, and so you can do both. I'll guarantee you, most of the really badass Bass banks out there, their local community people have no idea.
Oh, you guys had a guest on. I think it was Lead Bank, right, out of Kansas City, as an example, right? So one of the part of the bank I was with out in Kansas had locations in KC, okay, and that's a great example right there, Dave. Of there's a bank that those folks in Kansas City would have no idea that their chairwoman, CEO, comes out of Square, comes out of the fintech world. I mean, the super powerhouse pro that could do business nationwide. All they know is the local bank open right now? And so you're spot on. I mean, those boundaries have to go away. I think the banks that really struggle with what's going on in my local community and how the growth just isn't there and all those things, You guys both said it. And if that's where your focus is going to be, you're always going to struggle through, your future, right? You got to really open those boundaries up to really see the rest of the world and what's going on.
Yeah, we could keep the best parts of community banking. You will not find a bigger fan than me. I've been screaming for a long time.
Yeah.
It took a while to put all the pieces together, and we're really proud of Bankers Helping Bankers, because it's literally a case of, we've got the answers. We can help you out, and things that, there's a concept out there. Tanner talks about this a lot, about first principles. If you were to put a man on the moon today, you could probably do it with a cell phone compared to what we did back then. And
right.
So would you do it the same way you did it then? Of course not. You'd use better technology, you'd use better practices. And we have better technology and better practices to create a BaaS bank or to create different ways to make money. We've got these things now, and we're trying to offer them to people. We're saying, here, come. And believe me, they are coming. So yeah, they beat us up pretty regularly about it, which is a great thing. But we have this moment, and I want to just ring the bell here with the collapse of the crypto, with the cool things that are happening in fintech. This is a fundamental moment. I think we will look back on 100 years from now and go, that is when it changed right there. There's a new wing of banking that is opening up that is ridiculously profitable. And here's the cool thing. Learn from your fintech. All right. He does something really cool. You know what? He's doing something really cool that you are enabling. That does not mean you can't do it too. You could probably do it better and cheaper. So learn from them, steal their ideas if you want to. Yeah. We can do anything they can do. They cannot do anything we can do.
So I will say this, the model we're developing, I'm going to give you two examples. And the second one relates to the regulatory environment. The first one relates to branch locations and us having to really transition our mind into constant innovative thinking. So we acquired a little charter out of Seabury, Kentucky, very small town, very small bank. And we did it. We're a 130-year-old startup, right? That charter is 130 years old. And we did it because we did not want to apply to be a de novo. We feel like our growth opportunities are significant enough that a de novo would really hold those back.
Right.
Well, we have not yet applied for a branch in Middle Tennessee. So we're an LPO, DPO. And so at the end of the day, we talked the other day and said, well, we're ready to start opening accounts in Middle Tennessee. What do we do if we can't handle deposits? Light bulb went on. What you do is you have the client download our app on the spot, have them, let's waive the minimum or the maximum amount that you can do through mobile deposit, so they can put in all the money they want to put in in our bank, click it, have them learn how to digitally access us, including deposits.
No.
And by the way, we've just forced everybody, our own mindsets and our customers' mindsets, to use us in the most digital way possible. And now what we've said is, you know what? Let's see how long we can go as an LPO, DPO, and not to be a full service branch.
That's awesome. I love it, man. I used to laugh in the early days, man. We launched some of the first mobile deposit in some of our apps. And I remember when we were all putting in these limits, I'm like, why? I would think it's crazy, right? I mean, look, I've seen some of the weirdest fraud, so I get it, right? I mean, I've seen some crazy things that had I been in charge, we would have been bit. You know what I mean? But this is one of those with mobile deposit. It's one of those where I'm like, man, no way. I just cannot figure out the risk profile for somebody giving us money, right? And I mean, it's a long way out, and especially if you've got some time value involved. It's just a really interesting place that I don't think anybody else has played much with. So I really like it, man. And it damn
I changed banks. It's really difficult to get somebody to change their bank. And I've got a couple, but I changed one of the banks that we use simply because it was such a pain in the butt for our people to deposit money and get things and all that. So they had an unlimited remote deposit capture. Okay, so our team can open the mail at the PO box, take pictures of checks all day long, pot them on there, and nobody has to go by the bank anymore. Yeah. The bank, the last person I want to screw over ever is that, because that saves me so much time on my team and their effort. And so other than the initial, hey, did he get you on the first week of the deal? Okay, we'll set some limits for the first 3 months or whatever makes you comfortable. You've got some history, and then open this thing up. It's just like going to the bank and depositing a check. It's very difficult to fraud. Yeah. And the service level it provides people like me for my business, applies to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, there's bigger businesses that might say that doesn't help us, but for small business, which is right where community banks need to own, that is a great service.
Absolutely. Along those lines is many times when you think about those limits and you think about, again, the model we're building, and you think about regulators. So regulators, go back to BAS, banking as a service. Even when we use the term fintech, that freaks examiners out, right? Because they just assume none of us know what we're talking about. We don't know how to spell fintech, let alone what fintech companies do.
Yeah.
So we've had the opportunity to work very closely with examiners to help educate them on all things fintech related. Well, what's interesting in this whole mix, and for the bankers that would hear this, is everything you've done at this point in time, how to analyze risk. That's a bank's balance sheet. A bank is all about managing risk. All the things we've put in place and all the principles we've put in place to apply risk, you do that to fintech, and by the way, you're off the races. So banking as a service, making sure you're dedicated to understanding how to process risk to be a banking as a service bank is important. But the point being, the learning curve is not that steep, right? It's just getting the right people in place, is getting the right policies in place, is doing the things that you need to do. But my point with saying that is, it's not like you need to learn how to manufacture cowboy boots to put that as part of your process in bank operations, right?
That's it, man. I'll tell you, we've got so many cool things that we do now. We talk about, we're a bunch of old cowboys, so it's easy for us to talk about pizza and stuff like that. So I explain to people, that a lot of the regulatory things that we use in a bank today, they're built in. And so we're going to start this fintech, and we're going to sponsor this fintech brand. Okay. There's FBO models, there's sidecars, there's all kinds of different options here. And there's smart ways, there's cheap ways, and fast ways. It usually cost about 1/250th of the cost of starting a branch.
Yeah.
They're much easier to unwind. And we kind of walk people through the little process here, but the pizza idea is really cool. If you've got a fintech brand that does one particular thing, right? Well, there may be 2 or 3 regulations in there that are heavy hitting, that, issues Reg E, whatever, right? So, maybe you're on the asset side and it's Reg Z or whatever. So those are the only real pieces that you need to focus on. And if you'll just take a slow, bring on a brand, not bring on 50, bring on one. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, how do I find fintechs? It's not a race, y'all. It's a matter of get this down, and then next year, let's bring on another one. Maybe this another one has 1 or 2 more little regulatory pieces. You just need a little piece of that pizza. You don't need the whole thing. Let's become an expert here, and then we mirror that on both sides, the fintech and the brand, and the bank itself. And now we've got both sides. They're doing the same dance. And as we add a new little piece of pizza, we add the same thing over here. You don't need to start at some unbelievable complexity level. This is literally, you get in the water, you first put your toe in, and that's it.
And I totally agree. But one thing I will note differently, I think what we're witnessing is a violent shift in commercial banking. We really, really try to break it into a couple of key areas, one being what we all call BAS. Although I'd tell you what Wendell's doing, that's technically more of what we would call a direct bank, right? Mm-hmm. More of a digital focused and focused on a niche or a specific non-geographic community. A breath away from a BAS bank, right? If you think about the structure of everything else, very commercial focused typically. We're starting to see a lot more of that, or at least something that serves another group, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're really seeing is this new evolution of commercial that's becoming really, really interesting. I think we'll all invent new words before long, as we always do. And then we'll be laughing at the rest of us with our ancient terminology in 3 years, So
that's right.
It's a lot of fun, man. But I got to tell you, I'm really excited about what you're doing. And if there's any chance for any Quiznos by any chance, I'm a huge fan of Quiznos too. I haven't seen a Quiznos in years, man. So if they pop up, approve those guys for me. That'd be great.
And then preferred brands. By the way, Dave, you got me hungry for pizza. I missed my lunch. I got to go out and get some pizza now. You know what I'm saying? You got me thinking about pizza.
Oh, you guys are great.
Okay. Add to what you guys are saying. Our focus is very distinctly in franchise restaurant. Like we want to become the best in the world at focusing on the franchise restaurant employee base was 5 million employees nationwide, right? And if you look at all restaurants, it's 14.5 million employees. Big potential for us to approach the transaction space from a different angle. Because Tanner, you're right. We're not a banking as a service bank. And today, that's not our space. However, in 2 to 3 years, all the learning, and you guys are big into analytics, which I love as well. We're big into analytics, which, by the way, we can get on another podcast to talk about why bankers shy away from analytics is absolutely beyond me. We have the richest amount of data available at our disposal that banks just hesitate to use. But that's a side note. Back on topic, we'll figure out 2 to 3 years from now, how can we apply what we've learned out of franchise restaurant and carry it into whether we get into banking as a service or whether we get into another industry or whatever we do to carry it on. But in the meantime, I think you guys both were suggesting is, let's focus on being the best we can be in franchise restaurant world, including Quiznos, by the way, Tanner. We'll focus on that and see where we go from there.
I love it, man. I'm so excited for you guys. I will be watching closely. And man, sometimes I would tell bankers you have these crazy good ideas that, man, why are you talking to me? You've already got the greatest idea ever. It would be hard to screw up from here, man. I think you got a good one, a really, really good one. So I'm going to be watching and learning from you, man. I appreciate you joining us.
Well, appreciate your time, guys. And by the way, I just missed Roundup this year. Very disappointed about that. We were in the build phase, and quite honestly, we were knee deep in getting the ops side going. But heard great things about the Roundup, and again, I really appreciate what you guys are doing for the industry. It's awesome.
Yeah. We'll see you there next year, man.
Next year for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, thanks for your time. Appreciate everything, Wendell. Appreciate what you do for trying to help the other guys see some of this. It's very important.
Absolutely. All right, Dave and Tanner, thanks a lot. Have a good weekend.
See you next time, guys.
See you, buddy.
All right, bye now.